I should have known something was wrong when Brother Gabriel asked me to call him Father, after just 3 days. I'm Alex Chin, 41, and I've been doing private security for 15 years since my Army discharge. When his people contacted me about protecting their spiritual leader at some retreat in Northern California, I figured it was easy money, babysitting some new age guru while rich people found themselves. I was broke, drinking too much, and hadn't talked to my daughter Maya in 8 months since the custody hearing. My ex-wife made sure the judge knew about my PTSD episodes. The retreat felt peaceful at first. Rolling hills, organic gardens, people in white robes speaking softly about inner light and healing trauma. Gabriel seemed genuine, talked about sacred masculine energy and warrior healing. Said he could help me reconnect with my daughter. I wanted to believe him. That was my first mistake. The second was not leaving when I noticed the followers flinching whenever Gabriel raised his voice. But I stayed because for the first time in years, I felt like maybe I could be forgiven for all the things I'd done wrong. I had no idea I was about to enable something much worse. The first month felt like the closest thing to peace I'd known since Afghanistan. My job was simple: stay close to Gabriel during his public appearances, screen visitors, and make sure nobody interrupted his divine work. The followers called it the Sacred Valley Community, and honestly, it looked like paradise. Everyone had a job: gardening, cooking, childcare, maintenance. No anger, no raised voices, just this constant gentle humming of productivity and prayer. Gabriel held group sessions every evening where people shared their traumas and he offered guidance. I wasn't supposed to participate, but I found myself listening from the back. He had this way of speaking that made you feel seen, understood. When he talked about warrior wounds and masculine healing, it hit different than the VA therapists who just pushed pills. The followers adored him. They'd light up when he entered a room, hang on every word. I started understanding why. Between sessions, Gabriel would find me, asked about my day, my thoughts on security improvements. Made me feel valued, like my military experience mattered here. I even started joining the morning meditation circles. For the first time in years, I wasn't drinking myself to sleep. I was sleeping naturally, waking up refreshed. I should have been suspicious of how good it felt. The first person to disappear was Sarah, a young mother who'd been there since the community started. Gabriel announced during evening session that she'd graduated to the next level of spiritual development and moved to their sister community in Oregon. Everyone clapped and smiled, but I noticed her 5-year-old son crying quietly in the back. When I asked Sister Beth about visiting arrangements, she gave me this practiced smile and said the advanced students needed complete separation from earthly attachments to achieve transcendence. That night, I walked past Sarah's cabin. Her clothes were still in the closet, family photos on the dresser, her son's drawings stuck to the refrigerator. Nobody leaves their kids' artwork behind. I mentioned it to Gabriel the next morning during our security briefing. He got this distant look and said Sarah had been struggling with maternal ego attachment, and that her son would be better off learning pure love from the community rather than conditional love from his mother. The way he said it, so calm and clinical, made my stomach turn. But when I looked around at the other followers nodding along, their faces serene and accepting, I started doubting myself. Maybe I didn't understand their spiritual practices. Maybe I was being paranoid. That doubt was exactly what Gabriel needed from me. I convinced myself I was overthinking things. Gabriel had been nothing but kind to me, and the community was healing my wounds in ways the VA never could. When I brought up Sarah again a week later, Sister Beth sat me down with herbal tea and this gentle, concerned expression. She explained that I was experiencing spiritual resistance because my warrior programming made me suspicious of peace. She said Gabriel had specifically mentioned how my military trauma was making me see threats where none existed. The way she said it, with such compassion and understanding, made me feel ashamed for questioning anything. Maybe I was damaged goods, seeing danger in acts of love. 2 more people graduated that month: Marcus, who'd been asking too many questions about finances, and elderly Helen, whose grown children had been calling the community demanding to speak with her. Each time, Gabriel explained their departures as spiritual advancement, and each time, I pushed down my doubts a little deeper. I started avoiding their empty cabins during my rounds. When Helen's son showed up at the gate demanding to see his mother, I turned him away just like Gabriel instructed. Told him his mother was on a spiritual retreat and couldn't be disturbed. The look of desperation in his eyes haunted me, but I buried it. I was becoming complicit, and I didn't even realize it. By month 3, I couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. The people who graduated were always the ones who asked uncomfortable questions or had outside family pressuring them to leave. Gabriel started holding private sessions called Elevation Preparation for select members. They'd emerge glassy-eyed and speaking in this dreamy, detached way about shedding earthly forms and joining the eternal light. I found medication bottles hidden in Gabriel's office during a routine security sweep, powerful sedatives and psychotropics, way more than any legitimate retreat would need. When I casually mentioned it, he claimed they were for people detoxing from big pharma addiction, but his eyes went cold for just a second. Then the new batch of recruitment materials arrived, and I saw my daughter's face smiling back at me from a brochure photo. Maya, 19 and beautiful, holding hands with other young people in white robes. My blood turned to ice. The caption read, "Young seekers finding their true family." I'd been so focused on my own healing that I'd missed Gabriel's recruitment of vulnerable college kids. When I confronted him, he smiled that serene smile and said Maya had reached out to them after finding their website. Said she was looking for the father figure I'd failed to be. The cruelty of it hit me like a punch to the gut. He'd been planning this. Maya arrived 3 days later in a van with 12 other young people, all glowing with that same unsettling serenity I'd learned to recognize. When she saw me, her face went through a range of emotions: surprise, hurt, then this practiced calm that chilled me to the bone. "Daddy," she said, like we were strangers. "Father Gabriel told me you've been learning to heal your warrior wounds here. I'm so proud of your spiritual growth." The words sounded rehearsed, hollow. This wasn't my daughter speaking. During the welcome ceremony, I watched Gabriel place his hands on Maya's shoulders while explaining to the group how beautiful it was when families reunited. In spirit rather than ego. His fingers lingered too long. That night, I found a tight schedule slipped under my door. Maya was assigned to the advanced program immediately, no gradual introduction like other newcomers. Her name was on the list for elevation preparation, starting the next morning. I understood then that this wasn't recruitment. It was a trap. Gabriel had used my presence here to legitimize the community in Maya's eyes, and now he was fast-tracking her toward whatever happened to the others who graduated. I couldn't sleep. I walked the grounds until dawn, my service weapon heavy in its holster, planning rescue scenarios in my head. But every plan ended the same way: Maya wouldn't leave willingly. She believed in this place, believed in Gabriel, maybe even more than the others because she thought it had saved her father. At sunrise, watching her walk hand in hand with other elevation candidates toward Gabriel's private lodge, I realized I had become the perfect weapon in my own daughter's destruction. I made my first real mistake the next morning. I tried to talk to Maya directly. Found her in the meditation garden before dawn, sitting cross-legged among the roses like some peaceful statue. When I sat beside her and whispered that we needed to leave immediately, that Gabriel was dangerous, she looked at me with such pity it broke my heart. "Daddy, you're having a trauma response," she said in that same hollow voice. "Father Gabriel warned me this might happen. He said your military programming makes you create enemies where there are only teachers." Then she did something that destroyed me. She hugged me and whispered, "I forgive you for abandoning our family. Father Gabriel taught me that forgiveness is the path to transcendence." By noon, Sister Beth was reassigning me to perimeter duty only. No more access to the main compound, no more security briefings with Gabriel. They said I needed healing space from my attachment issues with Maya. That evening, I watched through binoculars as my daughter entered Gabriel's lodge with 5 other young people for her first elevation session. She walked in smiling. When she came out 3 hours later, her eyes were vacant, her movements slow and deliberate. I've seen enough drugged prisoners to recognize the signs. That night I called my ex-wife from my truck, parked 2 miles down the mountain road. Told her everything. She hung up on me, then called back an hour later screaming that if I didn't bring Maya home immediately, she'd call the FBI, the state police, everyone. But Maya wasn't coming home. Not willingly. And Gabriel now knew I was a threat. Everything went to hell on day 4 of Maya's preparation. I was doing my useless perimeter patrol when I heard screaming from the main lodge, raw, animal sounds of terror, not the peaceful chanting I'd grown used to. Racing toward the sound, I found Sister Beth blocking my path with 2 other guards I'd never seen before. Big guys, military bearing, the kind Gabriel had been quietly recruiting while I was playing house in his spiritual paradise. Brother Alex, you're not authorized in this area during elevation ceremonies, she said, but her voice was shaking and I could see fear in her eyes. Something had gone wrong with their perfect plan. The screaming stopped abruptly, replaced by Gabriel's voice booming over a loudspeaker system I didn't know existed. Tonight, we celebrate the first graduates of this cycle reaching their final transcendence. Tomorrow, the remaining candidates will join them in eternal light. My blood turned to ice water. This wasn't a gradual brainwashing program, this was a mass suicide event, and Maya was in that building right now. I shoved past Sister Beth like she was made of paper, my combat training kicking in after months of dormancy. The new guards tried to grab me, but I'd been fighting before they were out of diapers. One went down with an elbow to the solar plexus, the other got a knee to the groin that dropped him like a stone. Sprint to the lodge, adrenaline making everything crystal clear for the first time in months. The doors were locked from inside with heavy chains, but I could see through windows, about 20 people sitting in a perfect circle, plastic cups in their hands like communion, Gabriel standing in the center with his arms raised like some twisted prophet. Maya was there in her white robe, cup halfway to her lips, and I could see dark liquids sloshing inside. Kool-Aid or something worse. I put my fist through the window without thinking, feeling glass slice through skin, not caring about anything except getting to her. Started climbing inside, cutting myself to ribbons, blood everywhere. Gabriel saw me coming and smiled like he'd been expecting this exact moment for months. Welcome, Brother Alex. Your daughter has chosen to shed her earthly attachments. Would you like to join her in paradise? Maya turned toward me at the sound of breaking glass, and what I saw destroyed me. Her eyes were completely gone, pupils dilated to black holes, face slack and peaceful. She looked at me like I was a stranger interrupting something sacred, something beautiful. No recognition, no fear, just mild annoyance that someone was disturbing her transcendence. That's when I understood the full scope of what I'd enabled by staying here, by trusting Gabriel, by letting him use my presence to legitimize this horror show in my daughter's mind. I didn't think, I just moved. Lunged across that circle like my life depended on it, because it did. Knocked the cup from Maya's hand and it shattered on the floor, dark liquid splashing everywhere. She looked at me with such confusion, like I'd just destroyed something precious. Daddy, why did you do that? I was about to be free. The other followers started standing up, some confused, others angry that I'd interrupted their sacred moment. Gabriel raised his hand and they all froze like trained dogs. Alex, you're disrupting a holy ceremony. These souls have chosen transcendence. I grabbed Maya by the shoulders, shook her gently. Maya, listen to me. This isn't transcendence, it's poison. We need to leave right now. She just stared at me with those black hole eyes, then looked to Gabriel like he was her real father. Father Gabriel, is my earthly father having another trauma episode? That's when I knew I'd lost her completely. Gabriel's smile got wider. Sometimes the old attachments fight hardest before they release us, my child. Your biological father's warrior programming is trying to pull you back into the illusion of earthly love. I felt something break inside my chest. She trusted him more than me. After everything I'd done wrong as a father, Gabriel had become the authority figure she'd been looking for. I pulled out my service weapon, pointed it directly at Gabriel's head. The room went dead silent. Everyone out. Now. Or I'd put a bullet in your prophet. Some followers screamed, others just sat there in their drug-induced stupor. Maya grabbed my arm. Daddy, no! You can't hurt Father Gabriel. He's the only one who can help you heal. She was protecting her abuser from me. That's how completely he'd broken her. What happened next still haunts me. Gabriel just stood there with my gun pointed at his head, completely calm, and said, Alex, if you pull that trigger, you'll prove to Maya that violence is your only solution. Is that the father you want her to remember? He was right, and he knew it. If I killed him in front of her, I'd become the monster in her story forever. So I lowered the weapon, and in that moment of hesitation, everything fell apart. The backup guards I knocked down earlier came bursting through the door with more men I'd never seen. Gabriel had contingency plans I never suspected. They tackled me to the ground while Maya screamed, Don't hurt him. He's sick, he doesn't understand. Even as they zip-tied my hands behind my back, she was defending me to Gabriel, begging him to help heal my warrior trauma. Gabriel knelt beside me, whispered so only I could hear. Your daughter will drink from that cup willingly within the hour. She'll do it to prove her love for me and her forgiveness for you. And you'll live knowing you could have saved her but chose not to kill me. They dragged me to a storage shed, locked me inside. Through a crack in the wall, I could see the lodge. Within 30 minutes, I watched Maya walk back inside carrying a fresh cup of that dark liquid. This time, no hesitation. She drank it down like communion wine while Gabriel placed his hands on her head in blessing. I screamed until my throat was raw, threw myself against the door until my shoulder separated. But the shed was built to hold someone like me. 3 hours later, they loaded body bags into a van. I counted 22. Maya was in one of them. The next morning, Gabriel and his core followers were gone. They left me alive because my survival served their purpose. I was the crazy ex-military father who'd tried to stop his daughter's spiritual transcendence. Who would believe me? That was 8 months ago. The official story is that a wellness retreat experienced a tragic mass suicide after I, a disturbed veteran with PTSD, attempted to disrupt their peaceful community. The FBI found no evidence of coercion. Everyone had signed waivers, recorded testimonial videos about their spiritual journey, even wrote letters to their families explaining their choice to transcend earthly existence. Gabriel's people had been planning this for months, documenting everything to look like willing participation. My daughter's final video shows her smiling, radiant, talking about how grateful she is for Father Gabriel's guidance and how she forgives her troubled father for his violence and abandonment. She asks that people remember her as someone who found true peace. The video has 500,000 views on YouTube. Gabriel vanished completely. No trace, no trail, like he never existed. Sister Beth and the core leadership disappeared the same night. I've hired 3 different private investigators with money I don't have. They found nothing. Sometimes I get emails from accounts that get deleted immediately, photos of new, spiritual communities, in remote locations, young faces that look just like Maya's did when she arrived here. Gabriel's still out there, still recruiting, still using fathers like me as unwitting bait. The irony is perfect. I became a bodyguard to protect people, and I ended up being the weapon that killed my own daughter. I'm broke, unemployable, and living in a studio apartment in Stockton. My ex-wife won't speak to me. She blames me for Maya's death, and she's right. Every night I check the locks on my door 3 times, scan the parking lot for unfamiliar cars, sleep with my gun under my pillow. Not because I'm afraid Gabriel will come for me, I'm afraid he won't. Because I know what I really am now, a broken tool in his collection, damaged beyond repair but still useful as an example of what happens to those who fail him. I still check the back seat every time I get in my truck.